Get ready for a great show.
Black space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
Hello, I'm George Middleton. And my co-host,
I'm Lamar Finley.
your host this evening on this podcast episode of Black Space
Live.
Live. For the topic of our discussion today, we are going to examine the question, does the patriarchy exist in the Black community? However, before we get started, we would like to take this time briefly to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. In other words, together, don't be selfish with this content.
Wow.
Share.
Someone did not remember their Easter speech.
Yeah, y'all need to go back to the practice room.
Hey, we're trying to leave enough room to grow.
Right.
You can catch Black Space Live on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and Spotify. And you can catch us on Anchor FM, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. So let's introduce our panelists who need no introduction today by letting them say hello and anything else that they would like you to know for today. Let's begin with Tashi.
Hey, y'all. I'm Tashi. I'm originally from New York. I currently live in the second greatest city in the country, Atlanta. And my views are my own. I represent myself and not anyone else.
Welcome back, Tashi.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Ivo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ivo. I'm one of the original members of the Black Space Live cast. And what do I want you to know tonight? I appeared in a documentary in 2021 on patriarchy and the church, and whether or not Jesus Christ could be considered a feminist. After this, if you want more content like this, you can check it out. It's called Daughters of Eve, and it's by a filmmaker named Zaina Thyrus. It's an amazing film. I was privileged to be in it, and it's about the patriarchy in the church. You'll love it. It's interesting.
And we can find this where again?
On Tubi for free.
Tubi
Daughters
for free.
of Eve. Yes.
Daughters of Eve.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We're going to check that out. We might make that show a podcast discussion.
I'm here for it.
And have yours truly back on, because that sounds like it could really be interesting.
Oh, it was. It was great.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Ivo. Penny, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling kind of patriarchy today. How you feeling?
I'm feeling very patriarchy today.
Patriarchal.
So,
patriarchy, same thing.
Yeah.
So, let's start out the base. This should be a really fun, engaging, and thought-provoking discussion. But let's just kind of set up the base. Let's begin with Ivo. Ivo, what is patriarchy?
Patriarchy or the patriarchy?
Well, you tell us if there's two different nuances. I didn't, teach me because I'm a blank slate. So give us both of those. What is patriarchy and patriarch, or whatever the other word was. What was that?
The patriarchy.
The patriarch. Okay.
Specific terminology. Patriarchy, in and of itself, really refers to any male-headed household where the father figure is the leader of the family, and the leader of the hierarchy, at the head of the hierarchy. The patriarchy, however, refers to the systemic suppression and subjugation of women, the social and political disenfranchisement of women, or the belief that such is natural, allowable, or permissible. It's not just the belief, though. When you talk about the patriarchy, you're also talking about the systemic support for that belief that shows up in our institutions and culture.
Okay, good. That's a good explanation of the differences. Tashi, is there anything you'd like to add to that from your perspective?
No, I think Ivo nailed it. I found the definition of the patriarchy to be interesting and informative. But yeah, patriarchy is just ruled by men, by the male, whether it's societal, governmental, or the family. It's ruled by male, and coupled with, by default, some sort of subjugation of women.
I want to add before you move on, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tashi. Bell Hook's definition of patriarchy, just to bring something a little more concrete and universal into the conversation. Bell Hooks defined patriarchy as a political social system that insists that males are inherently dominating, superior to everything and everyone deemed weak, especially females, and endowed with the right to dominate and rule over the weak, and to maintain that dominance through various forms of psychological terrorism and violence.
Ooh.
I thought that was an interesting.
Read that last part again. I'm sorry, I was jotting that down. Read that last part again. That was interesting.
She wants to hear the psychological terrorism and violence part.
Yeah, but especially females, and endowed with the right to dominate and rule over the weak, and to maintain that dominance through various forms of psychological terrorism and violence. This is a quote from Feminist Theory, From Margin to Censor, in case anyone wanted to look it up.
Woo!
Okay, where do you want to start, Penny?
So this idea, I want to talk about so using those two definitions, right? Certainly one exists in the Black community, right? Certainly there are households in which men are the head of the households, right? In my household, there is a hierarchy. It is definitely a patriarchy, right? Although I don't rule with terrorism and intimidation or force. I don't. It's agreeableness in my house, right? And so, but certainly that exists, right? And I think that's an exception, not the rule, of those men that rule with terrorism. I don't think most men move that way that are patriarchs in their homes. But the patriarchy, does the patriarchy exist? We'll start there. Does that exist in this community based on the definition that y'all have given? Tashi, because I know Ivo's got a War and Peace lecture to give on this. I'm curious to know your thoughts before she pulls out the guns.
Let me say, I didn't know what the topic was tonight, and
no,
I was all, yeah, no, but it's okay. I was so excited to see you because I I love you, and I love your brain and the way you articulate your thoughts. But now that I know the topic, I understand why the two of us are here together.
Let's
now
go.
Yeah, now I get it. I definitely, incidentally, I've had this argument a couple times with a good friend of mine who believes firmly that patriarchy does not exist in the Black community and cannot, because Black men don't have power. I disagree.
Wholeheartedly.
We have power?
Don't start with me tonight.
No, I'm serious. Where is this power you speak of?
First of all, you just got through telling us how much power you had in your home. Now you ask me to show you where the power is.
I made a delineation between the patriarchy and the one in my house. Two different ones. You gave two definitions. I made a delineation between the two in my house.
Okay, and I'm making delineation. That's where the power is, where you said it was, in your house.
But most black men,
if nowhere else, even though there are black men with power outside of their homes, that power that we're referring to starts in the home.
But the majority of us don't head households. The majority of our households are not headed by black men. They're not.
Define headed by.
Headed by the majority of our households in which there is a man, a woman, and children, right? If you want to go to men that are living by themselves, I mean, that's
don't define couple. Define head.
Yeah, you're conflating family and household. I think you're conflating.
I'm not conflating family and household. Most of our households are single people. They're not.
You're using government terms, and we're talking about something cultural right now. Head of household is a term that we talk about taxes with. Define head?
Most of our households do not contain black men. With respect to families, families meaning parents and children.
That's true. That's fact.
So where is this power that black men have?
So what about the households that the black men are in?
Right.
Okay, that's a minority. That's a minority of households in our community.
But Penny, what it sounds like you're doing or attempting to do is set up some sort of expectation that if patriarchy exists, then men have power in families that they're not even a part of. And that wouldn't make sense in any way.
Not at all.
How would we have power if we didn't? The power is derived from, starts in the family. That's where it begins, right? That's where
it begins, where you are present. If you are not present in the family, it does not begin in the family.
Men are present in the family. Let me finish my point.
So let's talk about that. Said.
Well, to be clear, we don't head up most of the households in our community. Number one, we don't hold the political power in our community. Number two. So where is this power? And we don't have any economic power. So where is this power?
So who holds the political power in the black community? Are you saying
Absolutely
black women?
Absolutely black women. Absolutely.
What does that have to do with the patriarchy, honey?
What if there's no power? Patriarchy is undergirded by power, yes or no? Right? Is it not a power?
What kind of power, and where is the power executed?
You
have to define that before you just start going off.
Power is either economic, political, or your coercive abilities. Black men have none of those things in our community. We have none of those things.
Are you sure? Because the babies in these households that are led by women are not a product of immaculate conception. So the coercive power,
the black men don't have the power there.
The coercive power is how the seed was planted, baby.
That's where we're going. We're going to say because the impregnated already has power.
Penny? Do I have to have a conversation with you?
So we're saying that's where the power comes from, just by conceiving the child, even though he has no influence over the way that child is reared.
You're talking about black families as if black men don't make these black babies.
I didn't say that.
Just because they're not living in the same household, just because they have not married the mothers, that does not mean that there was no power involved.
Pause. So there's no power there. The child is born and that's it. That's the only power he has. There's no more influence from that point on.
Let me inject something for consideration.
Please help.
Do they have, I don't know if I'm helping. I really am thinking this through and spitting it out for consideration. Do black men have the power to create the nuclear family or to not create the nuclear family once they've impregnated a woman?
They're a part of that. They're a part of that dynamic.
No. That's not my question.
No, they don't.
Ask that question again. Ask that question again.
I will. Do black men have the power to create the family structure that you're referring to once they've impregnated a woman who decides to carry the baby to full term and start a family? Whether she's starting a family that she herself will head or she's starting a traditional nuclear family, does the man,
No.
the Black man, have the power to create that traditional nuclear family?
Not if the woman doesn't agree.
So
That's not the question. She
it-
asked,
it
does
is-
he have the power?
I'll answer the question directly then, since we can't accept my answer. No, he does not.
So he doesn't have the power to ask her to marry him and start the nuclear family that he wants, that he
Yes,
says the Black
he has.
community needs.
That's the ask is only part of the. If you say no, then there's no family created.
Yeah, I'm not.
Why are you bringing up saying no like men are just asking out here and getting denied?
Yeah,
That's
All
not
right,
a
listen,
thing.
men
That's where
are
I'm
asking.
going
Wait,
with it.
pause. Okay, so let's take a step back. Let's take a step back. All right, because we're not having an honest conversation. First of all, and again, it's all anecdotal because there's no data supporting this stuff, right? Any of the number of asks, right? But it is a social media popular narrative that our women especially reject many men. Why? Because they're mismatched. These guys aren't on my level. They don't make the money. They don't make enough money. They're
No,
not
you were
educated.
talking about a
narrative that
specific
y'all
group of
created.
people.
That's
You
not
were talking
popular
about a
narrative.
specific group.
I'm talking about black
You
men.
were talking about a
Yes,
specific.
no.
We were talking about a
Black
specific
men.
group of people. Black
No.
Black
women
men.
who are
talking
impregnated
about
by
a
Black men
subset
who
of
have the
Black
power
men.
to marry them or not.
These women are rejecting and
You're
not wanting to marry
you're not
these
being
men.
honest, Penny. The evidence is in
I
our
am being
culture.
honest.
Black men who have baby mamas, Black men who have baby
You don't marry
mamas,
these women.
culturally are evidenced by like not wanting to marry them. They're not trying to wife them
Come
up,
on,
and all
Penny,
these
let's-
baby mamas are just like, no, we don't want
So
it. That's not
so-
a thing.
And you all yourselves will say that it's a small number of these men out here making babies with a bunch of different women. That's what y'all say.
there are a small number of these
So
guys.
why aren't you marrying any of these women? You could. You've got
These-
option after option after option after option.
So these first of all, these men, we're using the lowest common denominator in our society. I'm talking about as a whole.
Agreed.
As a whole.
Agreed.
Because to be clear, most men in our black
But
men
you
in our
chose
community,
to talk about this.
most black men in our community fall in. No, y'all created this whole narrative about this power dynamic and just creating babies, right? The majority of
Created
black
the
men in our
narrative?
community,
Have you
y'all
studied
created this
anything?
narrative.
We
Y'all have
made
created
up the
this narrative.
patriarchy.
Y'all created this narrative. The patriarchy wasn't just created by creating babies. Y'all created this narrative that black men that creating babies was the power.
Been created, but it is
You read books, baby.
It is perpetuated.
So let me finish my point. Because
You don't read books,
me-
do you?
let me finish my point before you take the juvenile jabs. Okay? Y'all created this narrative, right? That the power was in the making of the babies. The majority of black men in this community,
That's not what I said at all. You're twisting my words, and I will not agree to that. No, that's a false argument. That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
You're disagreeing with something I've not, and now you don't even know what I'm going to say. The majority
Agreeing
of
with the
black men in this
foundation
community,
that you set, because you said it as
this-
if
you- we
that's what I
haven't- you
said,
haven't
when that's
even-
not what
I
I was
haven't-
saying.
you
I
don't
did
even know what
not
I'm gonna
say
say.
these
How do you-
power
how do you
lied in making the
disagree?
babies. You're trying
How
to
do
make
you-
it sound like I made this sound like this was
how
a
do you
singular power that black men had, and you're misrepresenting my point.
How do you disagree with the point that I've made?
You're misrepresenting my point.
Power?
I can't agree
guys
with the
are
misrepresentation.
I can't agree with the fact that you're saying power comes just from child creation.
So let me interject here real quick.
I didn't say
Not
that.
actually what was.
I didn't say that
let me interject here
That's
just to
not-
try to see
at all.
to take it back to the original question.
That's not fair, Penny, because that's not what was said. And I think you can do better than that. That's not. Come on. now.
Let's take it back to the original. Let's take it back to the original question. Penny asked, where is this power? So let me add to the question, what are examples of the power of patriarchy that we're speaking of? Give us some hard examples. It sounds like one is the ability.
Based on his definition that he provided about
No, not
the
according to his
coercion,
definition.
I only
Not according to his definition. His initial question before he said anything else was, he asked you, where is this power? So what are some examples of the power that Penny does not see that you all do see? Give us some examples. It sounds like one of them is the ability to make a baby is the first thing. Are there any other examples that we can use?
That's not what I said.
Okay, so give me some examples.
The ability to make a baby is not what I said at all.
Okay, give me some examples.
What I'm saying, because he referred to coercive power in his definition.
Okay.
The power of the patriarchy begins in the home. It's in relationships. It starts with the relationships that people have, not the products of the relationships themselves. You see the patriarchy in the Black community showing up in marriages, households, and particularly religious ones. Not only religious ones, but religious ones. Also, abusive households tend to be highly patriarchal. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, things like that. It starts in the home, and because it starts in the home and affects your psychology and your worldview, you take it where you go. It's not simply systemic power, institutional power, the way it works for white folks. I mean, it's not simply that for white folks, but being Black, we do have some institutional and systemic deficits in the larger society. However, the larger society is not the only place that we exist. We have our own community, we have our households, we have subsets of community. All of these places, patriarchy exists because the patriarchy is global and historical, and we are on planet Earth.
Okay, so for clarity, to make sure I'm hearing you right, one of the examples you gave was marriage. You're saying marriage is a patriarchal power?
I said marriages. The patriarchy shows up in marriages. All marriages are not patriarchal.
Okay, so all right, so give me some examples of this patriarchy in marriages. What is the what are some?
This is not fair because these are very basic definitions of what patriarchy.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. Everybody, hold on. First of all, we're having a conversation, and all you have to do is, when this is not a lawyer and defense and all that. So we run. But hold on. Come on, you got to respect the host, guys. We're going to respect you, so respect the host. No one needs to get inflamed here, because if we get too inflamed, I like emotion and I like excitement because that people like that, but let's keep it in balance. All I'm asking is questions. I'm not making points. Nobody's trying to win or lose. We want to get specific. In marriage, what are some examples of this patriarchal power? Is abuse one of those things? Is that what you're referring to? Is that an example?
Here's my problem with the question that you're posing. I will answer it, but the problem is, if you ask that question, you haven't looked up what patriarchy is at all, because how can you ask me what is patriarchy in a marriage? Like, there are patriarchal marriages, and then there are non-patriarchal marriages. I can't give you examples of patriarchy in a marriage as if it shows up it's a type of marriage. But I thought we were coming to this conversation where everybody had like a baseline understanding of what it was, and we were discussing it. I didn't know we were introducing the topic, because that's a different kind of conversation.
Well,
I wasn't prepared to
thanks for pointing that out.
What the patriarchy was from start to finish.
Thanks for pointing it out. However, just because we asked the question don't make the assumption that we haven't done any of the work. We want to get your perception, your understanding. So, let's not fight about the questions. And if you have a problem with the question, you can just say that, hey, here's my problem with the question. But guys, let's just have the conversation. We're trying to understand you, and we're asking these questions.
With all due respect, I think
this is
part
wait a minute.
So I just thought I was coming.
Just a minute. I'm not interrupting you, so don't interrupt me. Hold it a minute. I'm really extending a hand of understanding here, so please de-escalate. I'm only asking a question. There's no harm in a question, even if you disagree with it. We're here to understand. So let's just relax for a minute. All I'm asking is questions. There's no fear in a question. We want to know what your perspective is. What is an example of patriarchy, the power of patriarchy?
I got it. I got the answer.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So an example of patriarchy in marriage is one that Penny started this conversation off with. So it does feel a little disingenuous to ask for an example when the co-host started the conversation by saying, I'm the head of a patriarchal household. That said, I think you all know, I think we may have discussed this in the last time I was a guest on this show. Is that Static Mind?
I don't hear any static.
I don't think so.
Okay.
All
All
right. Let me
right.
test.
Thank you. Well, the static went away. I think it's you.
Is that me? It might be me.
Not
I have a fan going. It might be me.
Okay. Well, I don't hear it anymore. All right. So I said in the last conversation where that I participated in, you all may know this. I am submissive. I identify as submissive. I believe in and value submission. That said, there really is no greater example of patriarchy in a relationship outside of abuse other than submission and dominance. This is a dynamic that is common in Black families where the man is present. It is common, even when, excuse me, even when there isn't a formal delineation of roles by label. He is the dominant in this family. She is the submissive in this family. Even absent of that, there is still the head of the household role that is almost entirely, almost exclusively held by Black men in families where there is a Black man and a Black woman. And let me just point out something else to, throw, I don't know if it's a monkey wrench or what, but I don't want us acting like even in single family, single mom, single parent households, that there isn't the expectation that a man is missing. Like, let's not do that, because even in the last conversation we had, there was a little bit of commentary around, well, where was her husband? Where was her man? As though he's the authority. As though he's the authority.
But if he's missing, right? I don't disagree with that, Tashi. But if he's not there, then it doesn't. Then that
that's not true.
Dynamic doesn't exist.
The cultural influence is always there. We live in a patriarchal society. The cultural influence of the patriarchy is in everyone's home, and we're all dealing with it in different ways because it is pervasive. Just because you don't have a man in your household, that doesn't mean the patriarchy doesn't have any place in your life. That's not how this works.
But
and that doesn't mean that society isn't looking for that man in your household. Society's looking for the man in the household.
And that
because society knows that the man is the head of the house.
Because there is a role for a man to play in a complete household, just like there's a role for a woman to play in a complete household.
Patriarchal society, that is the perspective. Everybody does not believe that.
But
correct.
the absence of that, in order to have combustion, you need fuel, you need oxygen, and you need the source of power, right? The power, the spark. If one of those is missing, you're not going to get combustion.
So you don't know what egalitarianism is, do you?
I know what egalitarianism is.
Do you?
Egalitarianism.
Because you're talking as if it's patriarchy or the great void and nothing else exists.
No, I'm saying the conversation is, does it exist in our community? And it does not. Black men do not hold any power, and we do not live in this community. No.
All right.
You can't have an honest conversation.
I'm generous.
You can't. You just got to opening the thing with how patriarchal your house was and how patriarchal you are.
Started this off by identifying.
Let me say this. Let me restate this. Let me restate this. I made a clear delineation between the patriarchy, which means that if it were our community, Black men would lead and have the power, which they do not in our community, versus my home. There's two different ones. It's the capital C church, the church as an institution in this nation or the globe, versus my church.
So you're married?
Those are two different institutions. Yes.
So you're married?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a patriarchal marriage. And that's the extent of your power is in your house. You don't have any other power anywhere else.
That's the extent of my power, yes.
Question. You're saying that the patriarchy, doesn't exist in the Black community because Black men don't have power. So my question, did I miss?
You are correct. I will give a caveat to that, though. I will tell you what does exist in our community.
Well, wait, no. Before you do that, let me ask my clarifying question.
Go ahead.
you're saying that the patriarchy doesn't exist in the black community because black men don't have power. My question to you
We
then
don't have
is
the power.
what the power? Okay.
There's
What
a
do
difference
black
between
men
some power and the power.
y'all are going to listen, I'm not going to let you
Just
drive
move
me
the
crazy.
goalposts anywhere
I'm
they
not.
feel like.
I'm
I'm
not.
not
Yeah, I'm
moving
not
the
going
goalposts.
to here.
You have to have the
No,
power.
wait. Listen, I'm in the middle of a question. We can't have
Go
a
ahead.
discussion in the middle of a
Go
question.
ahead. That's
The
fair.
question is, what do black
Reciprocating.
men Penny, you're not the head of this thing here, okay?
No, I'm saying I'm going to respect your question.
Or this thing here.
Right?
All right. So listen,
I'm going to respect your question and yield, but I'm saying just reciprocate.
I always do. What do you need? What do black men need in order to have the power? What is it that you believe you don't have that means that the patriarchy doesn't exist? And if you had this one thing, then or this 17 things, then the patriarchy would exist in the black community. What is the power source?
The three things that I named, all three of them, not one or two. Or heck, if we had two out of the three,
What are
maybe
the
we'd
three?
have some power and influence. That coercive power of influence, that political power, and that economic power. We have none of those.
So when you say you have none of those, are you talking about, pardon the follow-up question, are you talking about over black women, or are you talking about over America?
Over our community.
So you don't have economic power over the black community, meaning you don't have more income, I assume that's what you mean, or more assets.
Income, economic power, assets, spending power, it all falls under the same umbrella. Every other group, their men have those things, or at least two out of those three things.
So black
they have
women
power and influence over the direct. I'm sorry, go ahead. Answer your question, then I'll respond.
Black women earn more income than black men. Is that where you're going with this? Because that's not, like, that's demonstrably false. So I guess I'm trying to understand who has this economic power in our. Because okay, so make no mistake.
Black men earn more, but our women have more. Definitely have more assets. It's not much more, but they have more assets than we do. Much more assets.
Understand who the relationship
and they definitely
are
have
between
more
in the
patriarchy.
It's between. You don't, and that's exactly where I was going. I was taking the slow road, but that's exactly where I'm going. Yeah. I think that, and this also existed in the conversation that I had with a friend of mine, and I referenced that earlier. I think that when you say that black men don't have the power or are powerless, you are, despite what your words say, you are picturing the big picture, the nation. You're not really picturing the community, because the community,
I'm picturing our community.
You can't be.
We live in a community that still don't fully believe in women preachers. What are you talking about?
And most of our churches are pastored by black men. Most black churches are pastored. And the leader, the head of the church, is a black man.
And those messages are catered toward black women, just like the. If
that's
we're talking about
y'all to determine. Y'all are the head.
Because the majority of the members are black women, and they are tithers.
So you're telling me that you black men are manipulating the word of God to provide or to prepare a message to women so that you can get more money from these women.
Churches absolutely
don't have any power.
Churches absolutely cater their message to their members.
There's still a point to be made here, and it's a quick and easy one. Reality is, just by making the decision to tailor that message, you are demonstrating that you have the power to tailor that message however you see fit to tailor it. So Ivo's point that in the black church, men have the power, that is a fair point. Despite, and let me just add to it, despite the fact that women outnumber y'all, we still ain't got the power in the church. Come on, somebody.
All right. So we're going to get this conversation is stirring a lot of attention, and we've got some people in the comment. And ladies, I would like you to, I'm going to do these next series, 3 comments here, and I want you to give us your responses to what they say. Network NIQ, if I'm saying that correct, says the entire concept of marriage in Western society is patriarchal. It was designed to assign one man to one woman because before, not all men were deemed worthy of a woman or even to breed. And that that practice occurs in a lot of just regular the animal species. You know, all the males in the variety species compete for the right to breed. And then NIQ says, which is why pre-modern marriages, there were kings, royalty, chosen men with many, many wives. And then Network NIQ states, the truth of the matter is due to this, not every man breeding should be, thus having a lot of degeneracy in society. Ivo or Tashi, what say you on this very thought-provoking series of comments?
Ain't nothing for me to say, but I agree. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say.
It's a historical perspective that you can't argue with.
Yeah, it's factual.
All right, so you agree. The
only thing I would add is that postmodern marriages in Western society include other models other than patriarchal. But historically, yeah, mainstream, still today, absolutely. A patriarchal idea in its entirety. The whole giving away of the bride.
So then my question is, would it be more productive then to return to this brand of patriarchy where not every man has the right and has the right to breed based on social factors, and that accordingly those that do are afforded the right to have many wives because they have been able to show themselves worthy of a woman? How would you feel about that level of patriarchy coming back into society?
You asking who you asking?
That's a serious question.
Either one of you. I mean, this is for both of you. Because this is what Network NIQ is saying. This is why the kings, royalty, and chosen men were afforded the ability of many wives because they earned themselves as worthy to do that. Would that be an acceptable standard?
Let me say this
to bring back to that
at this point in the conversation. Let me use some things we understand. We are experiencing what they call late stage capitalism because capitalism has evolved, and we can't go back to what capitalism was when it was first originated or previous stages of capitalism because we can't. History doesn't work that way. And so patriarchy is like that too. This is late stage patriarchy that we're experiencing here now. We can't go back to that. Why would we do that? It was never right. Why would we go back to something that's worse than what we have now? That infringes upon people's rights even more now that we have a realization of those rights and an expectation of those rights. Like, what? Why would we do that? For what?
Okay, so
women have agency now. What's the purpose of patriarchy in the modern world? There isn't one, unless that's just your preferred social dynamic. And if it is for you and your household, by all means, do your thing.
So
but
if I'm
it's
hearing,
not necessary.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's patriarchy and then there's the patriarchy. And you're saying patriarchy in and of itself is not good for any community, correct?
I said patriarchy doesn't work when women are educated. It's unnecessary. Women have agency in our society. We don't need you to think for us, move for us. We don't live in a society where that's necessary anymore. So patriarchy doesn't work when women have agency because they have agency. I mean, I won't say it works when women don't have agency. What I'm saying is it works more smoothly as a system. It has never worked for women by and large, because some women will argue that it has worked for them, and I will not deny them their right to feel that way about how patriarchal living works for them. However, by and large, for the majority of women, patriarchy and the patriarchy has never been a net positive experience. And we no longer need it for survival. So in modern society, you see it not working in people's homes, particularly in religious households. And a lot of Christian marriages just getting right to where I know it exists in the Black community in Black Christian homes that start off patriarchal in the marriage dynamic because that's their understanding of theology at the time. Marriages that survive tend to evolve into an egalitarian model. They may not call it that, they may not have the vocabulary or even the awareness, but the actual rulership of women by men in this society, in these times, with women being educated and having the ability to work and use their own agency to live on their own, like, it doesn't work the same.
So for the African community, you're saying, just to be clear, for the African community, today's African American community does not need patriarchy. It's not good for our current community as it stands today, correct?
It's not good for anybody's community except for communities who may choose it as a whole because that's what they want to do as a community. I'm not against communes and people doing their own thing.
Okay, gotcha.
So I have a question. You said it's not necessary for survival, and I reject this idea of ruling. I don't rule over my household. It's just.
Then you reject the patriarchy because that's what it is.
But the word rule comes with a negative connotation that I am the sole authority. That's not true.
That's what the patriarchy is.
I am the head of household, but this idea that it's not men being up in front, which is how this whole redefinition of patriarchy, right? And this whole, it's made out to be this whole evil dynamic, right? Our women we're not necessary. We're not necessary for your survival. That's false. That's false. That is false. Take men out of the community.
So let's use different words. Yeah, let's use different words. Are you simply a male supremacist? Because I heard you say men should be out front. Why should men be out front? Why should men have the preeminence? Is that inherent? You believe men inherently should just have the preeminence because scrotums?
No, I believe with respect to, I believe 5149 is what I believe. And the reason for that is protection. I'm not saying men are smarter. I will never make that assertion. Men aren't smart. I will never make that assertion. Protect you from what? Protect you from other men.
Protect you from what?
Other men and crazy women. Do we believe that droves of communities, the women can protect themselves from other men? We believe that?
So we need men to protect us from men. If we got away from all the men, wouldn't that protection issue be resolved? Do you
and then we cease to exist?
Nah, I need
actually no. I would make the argument that y'all would be more violent to each other.
You would be wrong.
I would be right. There's some data to support it. Right? We have some data. We have about 30 years of data on same-sex marriages. On same-sex marriages. We have about 30 years of data on same-sex marriages, and the rate of violence and same-sex marriages with women is 2 and 3 times higher than those with men.
So
is the rate of violence high with women who are adopting masculine characteristics?
Correlation.
Adopting masculine characteristics.
Correlation is not causation. And listen, that is a really slippery slope right there.
So do these masculine characteristics disappear when you're all in the community by yourselves?
Well, over time.
Why are we even going here with this? Why can't we talk about real things?
Such a
this is all conjecture and stuff you making up.
That is not made up. That is not made up. That is a fact.
The only thing I want to say, just going back to something Ivo said a minute ago, we know that, and I know at least 3 of us are Christians, 2 of us of the apostolic faith. We know that the patriarchy exists in Christianity for sure, in the Black church. I can't imagine that there's anyone seated here tonight that would deny that. That said, I just wanted to point out that it's not just us. It exists in all of the Abrahamic religions. It is also the Islam is also a patriarchal community, as is Judaism. These are the Abrahamic faiths are religions are absolutely patriarchal. There's really no question about that. And that part I don't think is even debatable, but I did want to add that.
Well, that actually is debatable. Hold on.
I'm listening.
Christianity, now the patriarchy obviously exists in the scriptures, but to then conclude that patriarchy is Christian is a false assertion, because the patriarchy was a global. I'm sorry?
It's not Christian. I don't think patriarchy is Christian.
No, okay, great. I misunderstood what you were saying there.
Yeah, no. I'm saying that it exists in the same way that it exists in Christianity. It exists in the Abrahamic religions, such as Judaism and Islam.
All right, so let me tie a couple. Let me tie a couple of things together here, and throw this at you to see how this hits you. The Webster's definition of patriarchy is the following: a system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family and is traced through the male line. In addition, it adds a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. And lastly, a society or community organized on patriarchal lines. So my theory to this, or my question theory, however you want to try to combine this, going back to Penny's initial question, for the African born or forcibly brought to America and born in America since then, historically, the construct of patriarchy is largely a European one, which has not theoretically, but statistically, historically, emasculated the African male. So if you accept that premise, how can patriarchy be an authentic concept applied in the African community when the male, historically and even present day, on a statistical level and on a real level, has been stripped and is stripped regularly of power in any systemic fashion?
That's hyperbolic speech at best.
Well, wait, stop a minute. Stop, wait, stop. Look, guys, I'm going to respect you, and I want you to respect me. Please do not disparage my questions. These are really genuine questions. And when you ask the question, listen, when you ask the question, wait, I'm still talking. When you say hyperbolic, that is disrespectful. I want a respectful discussion, and I have yet to disparage anything you're saying or your questions. But you know what? Don't disrespect mine or Penny's. Let's have a respectful discussion.
I don't see the word hyperbolic is disrespectful. I'm sorry that you
I do, and I'm saying all I'm asking is what I don't need is narrative about the style of my questions. I'm asking a question in all genuine. I'm putting a premise out here for theory.
I wasn't commenting on your question. I commented on your statement that Black men have been stripped of all power in our society. I said that statement was hyperbolic because it's not true that you've been stripped of all power. Black men, just because you have less power in the greater society than white men, does not mean you have no power. In all of our institutions, Black men are the majority of the leadership. Just because you don't have all power doesn't mean you have no power. Leadership equals power in communities and institutions. And anywhere that there is Black leadership, it is predominantly male.
So let me clarify your hyperbolicity. Let me clarify your hyperbolicity. I'm just making that word up. I didn't say all power. I didn't make a quantitative statement about the amount of power. I said systemic power, because according to the definition I read you, it refers to societal, government, systemic power. And so I'm asking you that question along those lines, not about whether we have any power.
That's how I'm
asking you Can the concept of patriarchy actually be applied in the Black community, in the African community, when generationally, historically, and current day, the African male is statistically unempowered?
That's not true. He's less empowered. Unempowered is a different term. It's a different definition.
What's systemic power?
You're asserting that Black males are not in government at all.
What systemic power does the Black community have? Give me some examples.
Yeah,
that's the Black community.
Yeah,
Black males.
You guys are still comparing Black men to the greater society instead of Black men within the Black community.
What systemic
and compared
power
to Black women? The leadership that does exist is held predominantly by Black men.
Okay, so what systemic power?
You know what? I have to say this.
You guys need to stop having problems. Not every question is an argument. What systemic power? It's a simple question, guys. It's a simple question. What systemic power? Give me some examples of systemic power that African men hold in this community. Because if you can't give me an example, then that means there is none. So this is your opportunity to pony it up. Give me some solid examples of systemic power in the African male community.
That is logically fallacious. It is absolutely.
I agree. There is no systemic power in Africa.
What you're saying is logically fallacious. You cannot say that if you can't
give a question. I didn't say anything. I asked a question.
George, I'm about to quote exactly what you said.
Well, stop criticizing me and answer the question. I asked you a simple question.
I'm responding.
What is an example of systemic power in the African community?
Give me an example, then one doesn't exist. That is a logical fallacy, thereby nullifying the question.
Prove it.
I just did. However,
how did you prove it? What evidence did you use to prove it?
By defining what a logical fallacy is.
Do you want me to go? Do we have to have a sidebar conversation about what a logical fallacy is? Anyway,
so what you're proving is that there is no example of systemic
That's
power.
Not true. I just gave you and you disregarded it.
The mere fact that you're not answering it is the proof.
OMG.
And listen, I don't mean to be raising my voice, but I'm only raising my voice. I'm only raising my voice because you all are raising your voice, and we don't need to do this. And I've asked you several times, stop with the criticism. Let's be intellectual here. Let's be intellectual. Let's be intellectual. Let's be respectful. Let's be respectful. Let's be respectful because I'm respecting you. I'm sorry. This is what men do. And you have a man on this podcast. So listen, stop raising your voice. Stop raising your voice. Stop talking over me because I'm not talking over you. And stop criticizing the questions. Stop criticizing the questions.
Hold on. I have to level set here.
Now, if you can just lower your tone and let's bring it back to zero, we can continue. But don't keep doing this.
Patriarchy exists on this broadcast, and you're going to ask me if the patriarchy exists in the Black community. This is so non-serious.
Truly, it's exhausting.
Oh, my God. Jesus.
Let me say this.
Please help.
A level
set
is necessary.
When you got real men, this you're going to get real men. So that's what you got here. So if you call that patriarchy, fine. But what I'm telling you is you got two men who are showing you respect. We're showing you respect. And I'm telling you right now, you're showing disrespect. And this is how men act. This is how men act. Well, listen. This is how men act. This is how men act when you show them disrespect. Now, so I'm just saying, if that's how we have to do this show, be an example for how men act, that's what we're going to do. But I've asked you repeatedly and respectfully, let's be respectful. Don't talk over people and stop criticizing my questions. Just answer it and give me your logic because there's no enemies here. Nobody's trying to win. We're trying to have a discussion.
Okay.
And it's a major journey. Says you talk over both women every time they talk. See, okay. Well, look, don't disrespect my questions. I asked the question. You all didn't answer it.
That's not true. I answered it multiple times and you disregarded my answer.
Hold on.
That's a whole lie.
Level setting is critical. You said, let's have an intellectual conversation. We cannot have an intellectual conversation if we're not willing to abide by the rules of debate. if we are willing to abide by the rules of debate, then criticizing a question is valid. Criticizing the person asking the question is not valid. That's what you cannot do. You cannot
I've been criticized.
person.
I've been criticized multiple times in this conversation.
Okay, good. Nice work.
You can work.
I'm just saying.
You have not been personally criticized. The only thing
I've
you've
been
been
personally
criticized are your
criticized.
points.
I have been personally criticized.
I was not.
So let's move on.
No. Hold on.
Let's move on.
Because I think this is important. I'm not kidding. Stating that a question is hyperbolic, and I'm going back to this because I think it is that important. Okay, since we like the dictionary, I'm going to read the dictionary definition, which is that hyperbole is an exaggerated statement or claim that isn't intended to be taken literally. There's no insult in that at all.
Yes, there is.
No, there is not.
Yes, there is.
There is
George,
an insult in that.
Yes, there is. Yes,
if you're personally,
yes, there is.
Hold on.
Yes, there is.
Okay, just to be clear, you're interrupting me. Just to be clear, I don't mind, but I'm telling you that you're interrupting me. Okay. That said, if you are personally insulted by it or offended, then you should communicate that for sure. But that's not the same as saying that pointing out that the question is an exaggerated claim is offensive or insulting, because it is not. Period.
So pointing out, saying don't insult my question doesn't point out that he was insulted by the.
I stated that.
He could say that. He could say
I
that.
did. Oh, I did. I did several times.
I know that you did.
So here's the thing: you can phrase that nice and poetically and all that. I know what the term hyperbole. I know what the term hyperbole means. Okay, and to say that when I ask a question to make a statement that you call it an exaggeration, but you just use a different word. Sorry, that's insulting. That's insulting the question and your quantitative. Not only are you insulting the question, you're quantitatively incorrect. Anyway, let's move to the next question. And let's see if we can get through this in a respectful and engaging way, other than debasing ourselves in this. So, and I thought this theory that I put out here was really worthy of a good discussion, but we're not going to be able to get to that. So here's the next thing. And this might be more worthy and productive, and we'll use this as the last section of our program. This show is an excellent example of the question I'm going to ask. Why does the male and female in our community have such polar opposite perspectives on patriarchy? Because that's clearly what's going on here.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead, Tasha.
Another thing that I wrote down earlier, the conversation to me felt so paralleled to the conversation that Black people have with white people about racism. White people are always saying that we're done with racism. Racism doesn't exist. We're finished with racism. Racism is done. It's over. Or worse yet, when there's an example of racism that we are speaking about, we're giving our testimony about this experience with racism, there are white people that will say, that's not racism, that's not racist, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's exactly why there is such a divide and a difference in how white people see racism and how Black people see racism, because we're the ones who are victims of it. I'm using the word victim loosely. Let's not get caught up on that. But we're the ones who are victims of this racism. We're the ones that experience it and that feel it the most. We feel the impact of it the most. So we're the ones that can speak to it, as opposed to the oppressor who is only saying, oh, we didn't do that to you. Patriarchy is the same. Women are experiencing patriarchy, and that's why there's a difference between women saying that patriarchy exists and men saying that it does not, because you're not feeling the pain of patriarchy. If you even let's take an example that is benign, right? Or at least today in 2023, it's pretty benign, and it isn't painful at all. When a man and a woman gets married, it is expected that the woman takes the man's last name. Why? Like every single time I have that conversation, I have never been able to get a valid explanation. And again, I've said this before. Y'all know this. I'm traditional. I'm submissive. I love the patriarchy personally. Well, not the patriarchy. I love patriarchy. Okay. I value patriarchy. That has nothing to do with the fact that you cannot give me a valid reason that a woman should take a man's name. Not a reason that she does or a reason that she might want to, but what is the reason that she should take a man's last name? There isn't one, but it is common in our culture. I'll yield the mic.
Okay, I appreciated that answer, and I appreciated that analogy. And when I say I appreciate it, doesn't mean I'm agreeing or disagreeing. I appreciate the concept on that. That you're saying patriarchy is an experience that you all, as females, as women, experience that we as men do not. And I think that's a really interesting perspective. However, you also said something in there that I want to get some clarification on, because earlier Ivo said that patriarchy is not needed and not really desired in today's society. You stated that you love the patriarchy and you love the submission, being submissive. You promote being submissive in women, and you love the patriarchy. So can you close that gap between what Ivo's saying, that we don't need patriarchy, today's women doesn't need it, but you love it? Please make that tie.
Ivo actually clarified herself. I don't want to speak for her, and especially not in her presence. I'll let her speak for herself, but I will say this. She clarified when she said something along the lines of, we're not talking about the people that want to practice patriarchy or want to be in patriarchal families. She's talking about society at large. I'm the same way. You said that when you were recapping, you said that I promote submission. I kind of don't.
But you said that.
I don't promote it. Yeah, I want to clarify. You said it's about clarifying, right? I want to clarify. I don't promote it in a proselytizing sense. I don't encourage my friends to be submissive. I don't tell my friends they need to be submissive, or this is the way the family is supposed to look. What I will say is that there is peace in submission that doesn't exist without it. For me, that's been my experience. It's not a you should do this or you got to do this. It's this is beautiful for me. This works for me. I think it's valuable in the Black family. That's not the same as saying you got to do this. You need to do this. And to be clear, if it wasn't, I was being hyperbolic when I stated that I love patriarchy. It was definitely hyperbole.
Okay, thank you for that hyperbolic statement. Ivo, she gave her perspective on this question of the difference in perception between the male and female in our community. Why do you believe there's such a polar opposite perspective in the men and female in our community on this concept of patriarchy?
Because men buy into the idea of male supremacy. And many of you are struggling with white supremacy. And in that struggle, male supremacy is often a go-to for Black men who are not emoting in a healthy way or dealing with these struggles in a healthy way. It comes out in our relationships. What we struggle with in the greater society always comes out in our relationships. And the patriarchy affects and starts in relationship dynamics. And so when you buy into the white supremacist narrative that absolutely depends on male supremacy, if you buy into it on any level, and we are all unraveling this kind of conditioning, so it's not an affront to anybody. As a society, we've been conditioned to believe that certain things are baseline, correct, natural, God's order. And as we're dealing with these different ideas, Black men have a unique position in dealing with both patriarchal ideas and male supremacy, but then struggling with white supremacy and maleness and manhood within that dynamic and the grander society and what that means for manhood. And it's very complex and it's very complicated. And I don't envy you at all. But in that, what comes out in our relationship dynamics is a lot of domination and control. And that comes from the patriarchy, and how Kendall St. Charles so eloquently put it, the pimparchy, which is something we could talk about another day, because that's a whole other concept. But like, it's like the soft white underbelly of the patriarchy. Lord have mercy. But the point is, it absolutely exists in our relationships. It exists in our institutions. We talk about the Black church. And then in the greater society, males are given more opportunity to lead. Yes, Black women get more opportunities to earn income, but in service to some male, usually a white male, when it comes to social and political leadership and economic leadership, Black men still have more preeminence because of the collective agreement to this idea of male supremacy. That's where the great divide is coming from, because we disagree, and we always have. But now we have the agency to say so.
So Penny, I think that the ladies make some really authentic points here. One from being their experience from what they perceive as patriarchy. That's something that we as men in the African community don't experience. And then secondly, the notion that we as men are struggling with white supremacy. And so that keeps us disparate in our ability to be collective on this concept of patriarchy. Where do you stand on their perspectives here?
I think it's them that are. I think they're taking they're conflating white supremacy and making us a scapegoat for it. I think that they are ascribing that to it, just like with the feminist argument. They took that and ran with it, right? And they're running with this. I think every example that they've given with respect to the evils of patriarchy all stem from white men and white supremacy. It all stems from that. I don't preach, and I don't think that the majority of men preach this idea of dominating and domineering women. The only advantage that we have over women is physicality. We don't have a mental advantage over women. You know what I'm saying? We don't have the only reason we have an economic advantage over women is pure physicality. That's it. That is it. Other than that, we don't have an economic advantage over them. Women are
never had an intellectually honest discussion.
Women are more educated than we are, by far. It's not even close. And if we're going to talk about if we were this male dominant Black society, right? Then we would be preparing our boys to dominate in education and economically, and they're way behind. So either we are terrible leaders, or we're intentionally putting ourselves behind, or that's the design. We're intentionally putting ourselves behind. That makes no sense. We don't have any real political power. Be true at once? We don't have any real political power. That doesn't exist. Yes, men are elected leaders.
You have some political power?
I didn't interrupt anybody when they were speaking. I didn't. I was respectful. We don't have any real political power, and this idea that yes, there are foolish preachers that preach a message that is catered to the audiences. This is why prosperity ministry churches are packed with members. It is not a godly message. It is tailored to those people so they can fill the pews and pay the tithes. And with respect to politicians, they don't cater to men either, because all these black men, black male leaders, you think in this patriarchy would rig the system so that black males would dominate. White men do it. Every other group does it. Right? Or I shouldn't say strike that. Not every other group does it. White men do it. And so if we had this magical patriarchy, the patriarchy in our community that was led by black men, we are the worst patriarchs on the history of the planet, respectfully.
What do black men take responsibility for? What do you have the power to do? Because according to you, nothing. You don't have the power to do anything but have sex with black women.
I didn't say that. You just said that. I didn't say that. I didn't make any conclusion as such. We're talking about power. I describe power in three distinct ways, and we have none of that in our community.
But you said black men don't have it. And if you don't have any power, you can't take any responsibility.
Let me strike that comment. We have We don't have no power. I'm sorry. We have very little. We have very little power.
Okay. So
we have a
with
quarter,
the very
we have
little
a quarter
power
of a
that
tank
you
of gas.
have.
We have a quarter of a tank of gas trying to drive across the country.
Okay. With the very little power that you have, what responsibility do Black men take for that power that they do have?
What do you mean what responsibility we take? We take as much responsibility as we can. We're held accountable.
Where?
What do you mean where? In the household.
Because you
in
just
the household,
said nothing is your fault and you can't do nothing.
I didn't say.
So where do you take responsibility for anything?
I don't. So you spoke earlier to a disingenuous conversation, right? And now you're paraphrasing me and speaking in absolutes. We don't speak in absolutes. I speak in generalities. That's where the conversation becomes disingenuous with respect to your responses. That's why I had to correct you.
I'm being very serious right now. You have described a situation where Black men have so little power that they can't take any responsibility because you haven't said anything about where Black men are taking responsibility.
I'm being serious too. I can't speak in generality, so I have to be specific and say we don't have no power. We have very little power. I won't say we have no influence. We have very little influence.
And with that influence, I'm asking you, what responsibility do Black men take specifically with specific examples? What responsibility are Black men at large taking for and with the little bit of power that you have? Because in this conversation, I've heard you blame everybody else for the powerlessness that you experience. So I'm saying for the power that you do have, where are Black men taking responsibility with and for that power? Because you also asserted that if our claims are true, then you're just terrible patriarchs. And maybe that's just true. So I'm asking you, where do you take responsibility as Black men at large?
I take responsibility right now in my own home, in my little corner of this globe. We can't take responsibility at large. We have no power.
Unable to take responsibility.
We're unable.
Okay.
So I'd like to answer, try a hand at that question, because I think it's a very relevant question, and we're not here really to talk about my platform, but that question does get into my platform, which really is kind of off topic, but still relevant to the whole essence of this discussion we're having, because we're coming from these identities of a racial construct. So when you ask the question, what can Black men do, or what are Black men doing to create that power? There are some systemic forces that are real, not imagined, that have proven, statistically researched, demonstrated obstacles for any male who identifies as Black or who is identified as Black. And these are done in legal policies, systemic practices. So
I got one more question.
Wait, just a minute, please, because I think you really ask a really valid question. It's a great question. And I don't want it to be one where we're arguing about it. I like to really like to discuss it. Okay. So statistically speaking, this is real. This is not an opinion. Black men are systemically oppressed in every major quality of life system. Fact. So from a Black racial identity, the Black male cannot, no matter how he tries, and historically you've had our leaders come up and try to do that, impose the Black concept of equality to white in systemic areas. From Malcolm, Martin, Farrakhan, the Black Panthers, every generation has its leaders of Black leadership trying to advocate systemically for the collective improvement of the Black experience. And I would say that by now we should realize that method, that attempt to try to make Black equal to white in this racial construct is an exercise in futility. Now, what I will tell you is that the path to creating your own power is to leave the European construct altogether. What we've tried to do as a collective Black community is take the Europeans' rules and apply them to ourselves through generational assimilation. it's worked temporarily, but it hasn't changed the numbers collectively, and it's contributed to these type of discussions where you have the male and female in our community on opposite polars of almost every perspective that's important to our existence. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, which is, from my premise, the black male can try until the cows come home, but as long as he's operating within a racial format under the black identity, he will continue to get the same type of results, and we'll continue to have these type of discussions where you're asking that question. What say you?
Okay, what I actually asked you was, where do black men at large take responsibility?
So
now,
you didn't get.
I didn't say anything about the racial construct or the greater. I didn't say anything about that. I asked you, where then, if black men have so little power over here, where then do they take responsibility? But now, after all of that, I just have a final question.
Okay.
Why would any black woman in her right mind want to submit to black men who are telling her, we don't have any power to help you in any area where the patriarchy would actually be beneficial as a vehicle? Because land ownership, political power, economic power, those are the only places where a patriarchal relationship makes sense for a woman. And so if you're saying you don't have any power there, why then would you expect submission or patriarchy at all? Like, why even look at that model if the model is designed for societal participation that you cannot facilitate? By definition, you're unable to facilitate that kind of activity in the grander society. So why would you then try to force our marriages into that model when there are other models to consider?
That's another great question.
That's a brilliant question, Ivo.
Yes, it's an excellent question. And I'm going to answer again, probably an answer that you won't find relevant, but I find extremely relevant. But here goes. The women in our community should be incentivized to do whatever they need to do to enhance the collective power of the men in their community. So that's the first incentive. But the reason the average black woman won't support and submit, as you say in your question, is number one, is because she's identifying and been as a racial construct and has been conditioned to not work with the men in her community. And this is generational. And again, this is not opinion. This is fact. It's fact. I got plenty of
gaslighting when you're telling me as a black woman that what black women do is this, and I'm saying no. I haven't.
When I talk, let me tell you something. When I talk, I don't talk opinion. So I can back up everything I say. This is documented, valid research, and I'm a subject matter expert in this area. So you may not like it. You may disagree with. I'm still talking. You may not like it. I'm still talking. Just a minute. Just a minute.
This is important.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
This is important. There is someone being abusive in the comments, and I'm trying to tell you.
My bad.
So busy talking about disrespect.
Well, let me see.
Saying, please, whoever has administrative power,
okay.
Please use Tarot Destroyer.
That's a troll.
Yeah,
and I was only saying, whoever has the control, please remove that person because thank you.
Okay, hopefully the producer is on that. He can deal with that. We don't condone that type of behavior. I know I've been reading some of those, and I wasn't going to show those because, So, apologies for that happening. As I was saying,
I just tried to report it on the stream.
All right, thank you.
That's all I can do. Hopefully.
So as I said, I'll close it up on this. As I was saying, none of this that I'm telling you is opinion. The black woman has been conditioned generationally to not cooperate with the black male. Just a fact. And if you want to come back on the show to discuss that, we'll do that because I don't talk stuff that I can't back up. But that's a fact. And the fact that you're shaking your head is an excellent demonstration of that. But that's why, and you just answered the question with that behavior, because the black woman is not conditioned to work with the black male and will never be as long as they stay in the Eurocentric construct of racial identity. It will not happen.
So I have a question for clarity. Are y'all suggesting that the Black man's power is held by the Black woman, and that the Black man won't have power until the Black woman
No, that's not what I said.
to him? Or so what do I'm not saying that that's what you said. I'm asking if that is what I can interpret.
No, that's not what we're suggesting either.
Okay, you've answered that. I heard the no. Good. Next question. What is it that Black men need in order to have power? How will you ever get power? And then I still have a point to make after that question is answered. How do you get power ever?
Okay.
Are you saying you'll never have power, or if so, how do you get it?
Okay, I'm going to give a short, brief answer because I'm sure Penny's got some answers too. But I'm going to say it again, coming from the premise of my platform, which is very different from what most people are used to. To identify as Black is to identify as no power, because Black on the hierarchy of race is at the bottom. That's what race was designed for. That's why it's called white supremacy. So statistically speaking, you can take the successful Black version of Penny and compare him to the lesser talented, lesser educated white person of him who is in the same position, and that person will by far outperform in outcome and results. It's just a statistic fact. So to be Black in a racial construct automatically puts you in a power deficit. So how do you get out of that? How do you acquire power? Number one, you do not acquire power in the racial construct. It's 2023, so what I'm saying may sound illogical, but statistics support what I'm saying. You do not acquire power in the racial construct under the identity of Black. The only way you can begin to acquire your power is to decolonize your mind from racial construct, return to your authentic cultural identity, and then you will begin to think culturally and do culturally empowering strategies. But under the racial construct, there will never be equality between Black and white. And Black men will never have power in a racial construct.
You put this conversation in a racial construct.
Yeah, hold on. The title of the discussion is Does the Patriarchy...
I know what the title is. I answered your question.
I know what the title is.
I know what the title is. I know what the title is.
I did not interrupt you, and you keep talking about what
you're being sarcastic. So look, when you come on Grown Man Show, you're gonna get grown man stuff.
I don't give
when you come on Grown Man Show, you're gonna get grown man stuff. So you're gonna throw it, I'm gonna catch it and throw it back to you.
Staying here.
That's how it is. I know what the title of the show is.
I'm done.
I know what the title of the show is. Thank you.
Wait, what happened just now?
I'm just saying. You got men on this show.
She left. She left.
You got men on this show.
Okay, so let me say this real clearly. Mm-hmm. If you can't allow me to speak without interrupting me, then I'm going to follow Ivo, because I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected when I allowed you to. Okay. All right, y'all. Good night.
Been a great show. Thank you.
You can't. You're not capable of not interrupting a woman, and that's patriarchal because you don't see me as valuable.
You come on a grown man show, you're gonna get grown man stuff.
That's valuable enough to respect. That's the
come on a grown man show,
but you were being sarcastic. You were being sarcastic. You were being sarcastic.
You were. I can come on a grown man show, you're gonna get grown man stuff.
Show it is. I can make a point with.
And so can I.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Look, ladies, real men will not be disrespected. Not by other women and not by our women. We will not be disrespected. So when you come on a grown man show, be ready to deal with a grown man.
I don't give a dog. You ain't the first grown man. Are you kidding me? And honestly, according to the comments and my own personal experience, you're really acting like the weakest link here. You're sensitive and you're offended by everything.
Okay.
By women at that. offended by women, by a woman identifying your question as hyperbolic. That hurt your feelings. That's ridiculous, George.
I don't stand for disrespect. I don't stand for disrespect. I don't stand for disrespect. Sorry. I don't stand for disrespect, and I respected you the whole time. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for it. You're not talking to a black man. You're talking to a man.
I'm talking to you. That's
exactly. And you're talking to a man. And when you want to step to a man, when you want to step to a man, you're going to get a man. When you want to step to a man, you're going to get a man. So you can run your mouth, you can do all that stuff, because that's what black women do. But when you step to a man, you're going to get a man. Now, I've been interrupting you, and you're still here. But because the reason you want to be here is because you want to try to get the last word. But guess what? This is our show. This is our show. This is our show. You're not in charge. And so I can just do things like this where you're talking and talking because, look, grown men don't stand for disrespect. I'm sorry. I did everything I could to maintain respect. But you know what? This is a new day. And we're going to lead by example. Men, real men, don't tolerate disrespect, especially if you're giving it. Penny, what say you?
Listen, George, I've said this many times. They have adapted this idea that we are white men. And yes, everything is racialized. Everything is about color. And I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. So long as we identify this way, we will be at the bottom because that's by design. And we'll never get out of that if we continue to identify that way. But they have everything that they describe the evil patriarchy to be is ascribed to white men, specifically white supremacist, white men in America. All of that stuff, the abuse. Black men, our numbers don't reflect this abuse and the economic dominance and power. We had nothing. How do you dominate economically when you have nothing? The only period of time in which we were building in this evil patriarchal society is when we were together fighting for civil rights, trying to build. And the minute they got it was a combination of, obviously, you know the history, feminism, and they co-opted that message and ran with it 10 times fast. And they decided that we were superfluous. That's what they decided was. They decided that. And then to back that argument of us being not necessary, they said they're not necessary because they're evil and they're domineering and they're violence. That's what they adapted. That is not us. And then to say you have all the power because you're in all the elected positions. Elected positions doing the will of y'all that elect us, just like the pastors that preach the message cater to y'all. Cater to y'all. But you can't, and this also, illustrates the differences between the two of us, the genders. There's a difference. We're not the same. We are not the same. And here's something that I was going to ask later in the show if we'd have got to that point, right? They complain about, and the patriarchy is not necessary. It's not necessary, right?
Right.
But by and large, none of them want a man that they out earned and are weaker than or stronger than.
Very interesting. Yes.
Stronger than. I hate the dominance, and I don't want that and this and this. But I don't want a man less than. Not in physicality. And not economically, and in few cases, not even academically.
Right.
So what is that? Is that conditioning? Is that conditioning? Because now you have autonomy, you have agency. Why aren't you picking differently?
Yeah.
By and large, you're fighting against it. Why are you not picking differently? Why are you not leading by example?
So now, I just want to clarify for those, and I know we angered quite a few of the women that are in the comment section, and you may not believe what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm always authentic. My comments were not meant to disparage those two very intelligent ladies that I have really a lot of respect for. I have a lot of respect for them, and having respect for some does not require that we be in agreement on everything. I respect Ivo and I respect Tashi. They are very strong, accomplished women in their respective rights, very intelligent, and they brought a lot of intelligence to this show. However, they also unintentionally and unknowingly demonstrated many of the issues between the male and female in our community. They've demonstrated it. If you replay this show, both you and I, Penny, were very respectful. We didn't attack or dismiss their points. We didn't try to be sarcastic, none of that. But they did. They took plenty of shots.
Oh, plenty of shots.
Especially with you starting out, you were just stating your opinion, and they because it's so normal, they think that that's just normal behavior because they're used to doing that, and they feel justified to do that. So it's a conditioning perspective that is seen all too often. And so every time I try to introduce an intellectual question, instead of them just rising up to the challenge, they want to shoot down the question first before they answer, like, oh, it's so beneath them, and how dare you even ask that such immature question? That's disrespectful. And you know what? Here's the thing about adult people. We're guests, we're radio hosts all the time. Occasionally, Penny, we do have people to come on and ask kind of immature questions. But you know what? As hosts, we don't make them feel bad and say, what a baby question.
Nope.
We might think it in our head, but we wouldn't be so rude to invite someone on and then make fun of them for their questions. And neither would I go on anyone else's platform and disparage them by critiquing theirs. There's just a level of etiquette that emotionally mature people do. That was not mature. So now listen. And Penny, you've heard me say this before. And if I make people mad, well, so I'm sorry. I'm not even sorry.
You don't have to give permission.
Being a man is not a popularity contest. Being a man means we know that every now and then we are going to piss somebody off. You can't be a man if you're not willing to do that.
Comes with the territory.
That's how it is. It don't mean I don't love you. Don't mean I don't respect you. It means, you know what? I'm being a man right now. And if we're in the same sphere, probably what I'm doing is on the best of both of our interests. And no, you won't like it. But I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to do what's right when the right time calls for. And I don't require, as you said, Penny, I don't require you to like it. I don't require you to disagree with it. I don't require that.
You don't need permission.
But I don't need your permission.
Yep.
And I'm not going to qualify the level of my behaviors on how many faces you make or how many times you smack your lips or try to overtalk somebody. You come on a grown man show, you're going to get grown man stuff.
And here's the irony in this whole this part of that exchange. When she hosts, she would not accept that from anybody else, and she knows she wouldn't accept that from anybody else. So, and this is what I'm saying. Everything and respectfully, and I respectfully, this is no different, and this is the relatable example. This is no different than when we conflate a white person being rude to their racist automatically.
Right.
Sometimes they just rude. It's not always racism. Every bad thing a man does is not the patriarchy. It's not there's patriarchy on the show. He's the host. We're the host of the show.
Yeah.
We're going to demand decorum and demand respect. If you were hosting the show, you're going to make the same demands. Has nothing to do with this patriarchy that you hate so much.
Sometimes it ain't racist. It's rude. That's good.
It's just rude.
Bro, that's a t-shirt. Rude. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah. I've had to make that statement many times in conversation. It's unpopular, but it's the truth. Yeah. Just like all these evil patriarchy, those are just bad men. All of these fallacies are all come from white America. This idea of this, I'm just gonna rant a little bit, George, if you don't mind.
No, man.
This idea of the soft life. Statistically, and I looked it up. Statistically, it ain't even white women that are the majority of the stay-at-home moms. It's Latin immigrants. They have the majority of the stay-at-home moms. At the bottom of the income, they're the majority of the stay-at-home moms. It ain't white women. This soft life that black women get when we have those conversations that the white women have, knowing, or that our grandmamas have. No, we never had that. We all been working since we got here. We just started getting paid for it, all of us. So what is this? All of these things are adapted from white popular culture and this white supremacist narrative that they draw, and they try to run with it. This idea of the sexual liberation, which I hate because our women are overly sexualized. They're overly sexualized. but they run with it. They popularize it. You don't see white women getting up there and pushing it in the popular narrative and mainstream. Our women are, and they're suffering the most from it. All of these things they adapted from white women, they're suffering the most. And even white women smarted up and said, you know what? Back during the feminists, even half of them say, you know what? I don't know. I kind of like being a wife. I don't know about this. Y'all can run with that. None of us did. None of our women did that. They just ran with it. And they're doing the same thing with this whole evil patriarchy idea. Black men ain't never oppressed. We've never oppressed them by and large or taken the power away. Are you kidding me? For every black leader that you can name, I guarantee you know their wife's name. I guarantee you know their wife's name. Because they were right by us and we wanted them to get to shine. When Barack got elected, did not Michelle shine? That doesn't exist outside of our community. So don't tell me I'm not saying that the patriarchy as it's described is a prescription. But I will say this, and I'll land with this point. It is the 5149 prescription is absolutely necessary. And I give us that advantage purely because of the fact that we provide the security and we enforce the structure. They can't do that. They just can't do it. They're not equipped to do it. It's not a knock on them. It doesn't mean that they're less than. They're not. Because they are definitely our intellectual equals, if not superiors in many aspects. But those two pieces why I give myself that 1%. Because when all hell breaks loose, and it does, I have to regulate. You can't do that. And we don't depend on our women to do that.
And as men, we don't require your permission for that 1%.
Absolutely.
We're going to take it.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a very rousing show.
It's been a great one, boy. We had the comment section was lit even without that troll. It was lit.
Yeah, even without the troll, that's a sign of a good show when you get people on your show trolling you because they've been triggered, and that's what they see a potential of power there. So people don't mess with things that they don't have regard for. So,
It's a fact. People
mess with stuff that can trigger them or they feel may have some impact on them. That's not desirous to them. So this has been a great show. I still thank Ivo and Tashi because they're excellent guests and they're great people, and I'm not mad at them, and I still have respect. They're probably mad at me and probably not going to like me for a while and may not even want to talk to me for a while. But hey, I'm not here to be popular. It's all right. I still have love for you. I still have respect for you. And the work I do is for the women in our community, whether you respect it, recognize it, or not. But I don't require you to do any of those because I'm going to do it anyway because that's what men do.
Absolutely.
Penny, I enjoyed doing this co-host with you, man. I think this is the way to go.
I agree.
This is the way to go. This brings out some great dynamics, and I've got mad respect for you anyway, Penny. Regardless of what the trolls are saying over here, I've got man love for Penny, and I'm not embarrassed to say it right here. So, Penny, man, it's been great, man.
Always a pleasure, man.
All right, to the listening audience, to the people in the chat room, thanks for being engaged with us, and even to the trolls, thank you for your haterism because in your hate, there's the compliment in there. So we appreciate that. Until next week, have a great week. And until the next time we meet, we'll see you in the Black Space.
Peace.